Hello, everyone. How are you today? Some of you are already celebrating 4th of July if you live in the United States. Otherwise, it's a another great Sunday evening. And I know that I haven't gone live in a while, so here we are. So today's subject is what to do or not to do when you have very low ovarian reserve. Um, I see the majority of my patients fall in this category with decreased ovarian reserve that by definition it's an AMH, an anti-Mullerian hormone of less than 1. However, I do want to point out that in certain circumstances, you could still have low ovarian reserve and have a value of higher than 1 because that is just a snapshot in time. We don't know what your baseline was, right? So if you started at 30 with an AMH of 6 and you are 40 and your AMH is 1.5, that might be low ovarian reserve for you. But um, okay, so give me a second. So I hear that you can't hear me. It might be that this is connected to my. Okay. Can you hear me now? Sorry about that. Sometimes this my headset starts acting up. No? Okay. Okay. All right. Let me see what's going on. Good night. Can you guys hear me or not yet? Because I heard somebody just said that they can't hear me. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, great. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, awesome. So great. Well, thank you for everybody who joined me. So I was talking about decreased ovarian reserve. What does it mean, and what does it mean for you? So, like I said, by definition, decreased ovarian reserve is when the AMH is less than 1, but it not necessarily mean that that if you have an AMH of higher than 1, you might not behave as a decreased ovarian reserve because we don't know what your baseline with your baseline was. But let's talk about the very low ovarian reserve patients. Um, so you have the around 1, and then you have the patients that have an AMH of 0.5 or less. Okay. And I know because this is the majority of the patients that I handle, that population needs to be handled a little different. All right. I see a lot of patients come after they've been to other fertility clinics or so forth. And first and foremost, even though IVF is the best technology that we have in the fertility world, it is not the cure all. It's very important for you guys to understand this. And what I have seen is that IVF for this particular group might not be the best approach. Of course, we're here to respect that. However, if your AMH is less than 1, especially less than 0.5, the production of eggs that you're going to have is very low. So we're talking about 2, 3, at the most 4 eggs per retrieval. And we know in the fertility world that there is a loss in raw material as you go through the steps because IVF is very traumatic to your eggs. We go in and poke your ovary and suck them up and take them to the lab. So even if you had, let's say, 5 follicles, 4 eggs, not all of those eggs are going to make embryos. Then you're down to 1 to 2 embryos and potentially 0. So IVF, it's in the mix, but it might not be the best choice for you. A lot of times on this group of patients, especially 40 plus with very low AMH, I suggest optimizing what they have with priming, PRP, supplements, now the peptides, stem cells, create a very robust protocol of priming for you to optimize what you have. And then if you're making those 3 to 4 eggs, make the best 3 to 4 eggs that we can get. And then do hyperovulation with IVF meds, but then convert to IUI or time intercourse. So I want to go back to the IVF scenario because I see it all the time. So you have a patient, or I have a patient, let's say hypothetically 42 years old, AMH of 0.5, and she wants to do IVF because now she wants to do pre-genetic implantation, pre-implantation genetic testing on the embryos because she's worried of having a baby with Down syndrome. I honor that. However, I've seen it over and over again. That is a setup for failure. Why? Because again, you're starting with a very, very low AMH. Then you're making maybe 1 to 2 embryos that you're going to push to blast because he has to be a day 5 embryo or beyond to do a biopsy. And you either end up with 0 embryos or 100% abnormal. And I see it over and over and over again. And the purpose of this talk is to talk on the other side, the reality of things. So if you are in your 40s and your AMH is low, you're already doing a leap of faith. Go ahead and do it. Either you can't control it, right? So you either take a leap of faith or don't, because I have a beautiful patient right now. She now is 45. She has been 3 years on the quest of the perfect embryo. She's done IVF 10 times. Either no embryos or all embryos abnormal at PGT testing. And now she's back to square one. Now she's older. Her AMH she started with an AMH, which was amazing, of 1.3. Now she's 45 with an AMH of 0.4. And now she's catching up because she really doesn't want to use donor eggs. And that's what she's been to multiple fertility clinics, and I have served kind of as a consultant for her. She's done with CNY. She's doing a local clinic now. And now she is back to square one with empty hands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars less. So I'm here to play devil's advocate. Put that seed in your brain. Also, the fear, the pre-genetic testing, the fear of having an abnormal baby is actually very rare to have a woman in their 40s have a successful baby with Down syndrome. It is a lot more common in the younger crowd because those eggs are stronger, they will survive. What I see on the older patients is the all or nothing. Either it survives or it doesn't. So if it survives, that is a genetically normal embryo. If it doesn't implant or it's an early miscarriage, it was abnormal. So why submit the embryo through a potential biopsy that the biopsy itself could damage the egg, damage the embryo, sorry, and then just the least manipulation of your eggs at this age group and the situation of low ovarian reserve is the best. It is the best. Your eggs might be not abnormal. Don't assume that because you have a low AMH, your eggs are abnormal. They're more frail and there are less of them. There's less follicles being recruited. There's less eggs produced. But don't assume that they're normal. Assume that they're more frail. So the least amount of manipulation those eggs go through, the better. And the best incubator for your eggs and for your embryos is your body. So if there's not a male component, there is not a tubal issue, and there is not a known genetic disorder, meaning you have cystic fibrosis or you're a carrier for something that's lethal, let's enhance what you have and then be successful at a pregnancy, because at the end, that's what we need. And I see a lot of patients come in that scenario, just I want IVF and I want my embryos tested, and I don't think they quite understand that they're going up the hill. Okay, so what can we do? All right, and that's just kind of playing devil's advocate right now, but what can you do? First of all, I know that a lot of you have heard from other clinics, oh, you're old and decrepit. You're not. Okay, take that idea out of your head. You're not old and decrepit, and not because you're past 40 and your AMH is less than 1 means that you have automatically have to do donor eggs, IVF with donor eggs. I at the moment I'm dealing with a patient that she just got traumatized. She is 41, traumatized with her previous clinic, and she can't kind of go past what she heard before. And unfortunately, she has had a few cycles of failed IVF, um, and because she was doing the pre-implantation genetic testing, which was always abnormal, or the one time that she had a normal embryo, it didn't implant, because that's the other scenario. A normal embryo does not guarantee a pregnancy, all right? So I see it all the time. So thinking of her, she was traumatized and it's like, oh, I'm old and I can't do it. And her AMH is not even that bad. It's 0.9, which is, it's pretty, in my book, which is crazy. It's pretty good. Okay. So if you feel very strongly about IVF, which that, is not a wrong thing. We're here to coach you through this experience of fertility. Then the least manipulation is best. Low dose, gentle. You are a antique car, okay? And you would not take a antique Chevy and just on the gas pedal. No, you're a flower. You need to be handled as such. You're delicate. So gentle with the meds. So low stim, day 3, okay? Don't push your blasts. Don't push your embryos to blast. So day 5 and beyond. Day 3, if you can do a fresh, even better. The best incubator for your embryos is your body. All right. So I want to put it out there. And then the other thing is, let's optimize what what you have. What does that mean? Let's do priming. If you're dealing with low ovarian reserve, especially on the younger crowd, okay, less than 40, low ovarian reserve, there's something happening in your body. There's something happening in your body that made those ovaries struggle. And ovaries and testicles are end organs. All right. If there is an organ that is essential for survival that's stressed out, fertility and sexuality are considered luxuries by your body. So how about we deal with the underlying issue? Is it autoimmunity, inflammation? And we're dealing with endometriosis, which is kind of a little bit of both. Let's prime you. Let's get you on a keto low carb diet. Let's do serial PRP. I recommend priming 1 to 3 months prior to doing any fertility treatment for anyone with low ovarian reserve. And the other idea, oh, the clock is ticking. Well, the clock was ticking 6 months ago too, right? You can afford 1 to 3 months to get the best results out of the fertility treatment that you choose to go through. All right. And worst case scenario, you get pregnant, because, a lot of times I still send them home with oral fertility drugs like letrozole or Clomid, and then have sex at home. And what if you get pregnant? I actually published a paper recently on high volume PRP, and 5 cases where 4 with dismal AMH, we're talking about AMH of 0.3 and less, got spontaneously pregnant during priming because of the supplements and the PRP they were on. So IVF is not the only choice. It is still a choice. And if you're going to go that way, gentle. Day 3, transfers, fresh if possible, if there's no contraindication. All right. I personally prefer optimization, priming, hyperovulation with IUI, or time intercourse at home if there's no tubal or male component. All right. Okay, so let's see what you guys have any questions. My AMH was 0.8 last year at 41, and I got pregnant naturally but had a miscarriage. However, I used supplements, DHEA, and it went to 3.4. Is that good? Yes. So DHEA is a testosterone, so you want to check on it. All right, you want to be gentle with it. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing. Too much DHEA in your system actually is detrimental for the eggs. AMH, that's another myth. AMH does change because if the health of the ovaries improve, it's going to be expressed on your hormone panel, both your day 3s, which is your baselines on day 3, which are going to be a lot more sensitive than the AMH, but I have seen AMH go up tremendously on women that go through priming, okay? What percent of abnormal embryos turn into healthy babies? Oh my God, so many. I mean, it's insane to me. Honestly, pre-genetic testing, pre-implantation genetic testing is a waste of money. The only time that I think it's worth doing is that if there is a known lethal genetic disorder that is inherited. That would be the only way I would recommend it. And we do have patients that are in those scenarios. Either they had a baby with the lethal issue and then they figure out that they were carriers, or stuff like that. We have tons of babies. I don't have the percentage, but we have tons of babies come out of mosaics. I would say 40-50% of mosaics turn out to be normal babies. And then we have a lot of babies come out of ugly embryos. Oh, that 3 BC that you were almost about to trash gives you little Lucy or Thomas. Okay. Do you help with the AMH to go higher? Absolutely. Like I was saying before, I've seen AMHs go up, all right, many, many times. And I know that's not what is normally preached out there, but that's wrong. It's simply wrong information. Even with the PRP, I've seen a lady that started with an AMH of 0.6 or 7, and her first retrieval, she only had 3 eggs. She submitted herself to serial intraovarian PRP, and by retrieval number 4, they took out 16 eggs. So your body wants to work youthfully if you allow it to, and you give it the tools and the raw material that it needs to heal itself. We are perfect machines, okay? So AMH of 0.16. So the paper that it was a case study. You can check it out. It's public access. 3 of my patients that got pregnant spontaneously just with letrozole, time intercourse, high volume PRP, and supplements had AMHs of 0.2 or less. There's one of them that was 0.10, and she is carrying a little baby boy that's about 3 years old right now. Okay. And yes, I deal with a lot of patients that have been turned away from other clinics, or they've had really bad experiences from other clinics where they keep getting pushed towards donor eggs. And it's not necessarily what you need, because again, even if your AMH is very low, you're still menstruating. There are plenty of pregnancies happening with AMHs that are less than 0.5, 0.3. All right. We just need one healthy egg at the right time that meets the one perfect sperm, and you get a baby. AMH is just, what does that hormone tell us? It tells us how many follicles are recruited each month. So it's a good indicator of how many eggs can we retrieve through an IVF cycle. But and that's where I don't think that most women with low AMHs should be doing IVF. It's just not cost effective. If you have a very low AMH and you're going to make somewhere between 1 and 4 eggs, it is not cost effective. Might as well try to get pregnant and use all that money to hyperstimulate, maybe get 2 to 3 eggs per cycle to optimize chances of pregnancy, instead of going through retrieval and after retrieval to get one embryo, one embryo, one embryo. I mean, that's just my take on it. So yes, so adding intralipids and ACG wash, absolutely. That's kind of towards the transfer. It does decrease inflammation, especially with patients that tend to have high NK. And then the ACG wash, what it does, it primes the uterus to receive the embryo. All right, so my wife AMH was 2, and we're trying to get pregnant. Is that a good number? Yes, that's a very good number. If you're not being successful at the pregnancy party, we would have to see what are the other components and what's going on. Are we dealing with inflammation, infection? Are we dealing with tubal issues? Are we dealing with a male factor? Have you gone through all the workup to see what's going on? Is she getting pregnant at all? So I would have to kind of had a full discussion through a consult to see how I can help you. Yes, so even within CNY and outside of CNY, the standard of care or the mainstream thinking is that if you're past 40 with low AMH, donor egg is it's going to be your only choice. And that's not completely correct. All right. Donor eggs is going to be the fastest choice to a baby, but it is not your only choice. Again, I see it all the time. Now, if you're thinking of doing IVF with an AMH of 0.16, then I can tell you that the chances of success are close to 0. But if you're willing to do things a little different, and then again, there can be a male component, there cannot be a tubal issue, then we can definitely work to optimize what you have so we can get you to ovulate, optimize the quality of the eggs that you're producing every month, and try to get you pregnant naturally. So she had a tubal reversal. So there is a tubal component. So it's not her AMH. Now, having open tubes after a tubal reversal does not mean that they're functional properly. Okay, they're functioning properly. The tubing might be open, but if the functionality, there's some special hairs that need to move the egg along, and if they're not coordinated after the tubal reversal, then a pregnancy is not going to occur, or it might end up in ectopic pregnancy. So definitely we need to have a more detailed conversation on how can we help make your dream of a baby come true. So what do you think about sperm analysis? 92% came abnormal. That is a male factor for sure. And even though I am focusing on low ovarian reserve, if you think about it, the testicles are the male ovaries, right? So they get treated in a very similar way. I do testicular PRP. I've had really good results with that. Priming, hormone manipulation, just what we do on the female side, we do on the male side, and that does need to be addressed. And we have to see the remainder of the factors in the semen analysis. So if you had a very low morphology, meaning a lot of them were abnormal, what's the total count? Are the ones that are normal, they moving around, all of that stuff. I had DNC and had 2 embryo transfers after that. Is there a chance that DNC damaged the uterus? DNCs are complicated things to some, they're simple and complicated at the same time. If you'd had multiple procedures, we could be dealing with chronic infections. We could be dealing with some trauma to the uterus. So I would recommend to do a full evaluation, including to check for endometritis, or, sometimes I just treat it honestly, and then do uterine priming. What does that mean? Give supplements and do PRP for the uterus. I do that a lot with failed transfers and recurrent miscarriages. So you can definitely reach out to me through Messenger, and I can arrange so we can have a consult and talk specifically about that. All right. Well, to sum up, if you find yourself in this scenario where you are past 40 with an AMH of less than 0.5, yes, you have a chance of having your own biological children. IVF might not be the best choice for you. If you choose to do IVF, low dose and fresh transfer and day 3 freeze, either, just freeze day 3 and potential fresh transfer, and leave the embryos alone. Do not test them. I personally think that most of these patients do a lot better with priming, hyperstimulation, and time intercourse or IUI. And regardless of what you're planning to do, what type of fertility treatment you wish to pursue, priming, I can't say it enough. I know priming means different things for different people. In my book, it would include, depending your scenario, hormonal manipulation, serial PRP, both high volume and intra-ovarian, supplements, glandulars, and depending on the scenario and your personal preferences, stem cell therapy, peptide therapy, and so forth. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm Dr. Verdiales. If you want to reach out to me, you can do so through the messenger. I'm pretty easy to find. And have a blessed rest of your, well, actually, have a blessed next week. Bye-bye.